Hey guys, what's up? We're here with episode 3 of the Ladder Podcast. I am incredibly excited to be one of your hosts today, Zachy Sports, community manager at Rocker, and I got my boy Gersh with me today, and we also have our very special guest, Rusto, aka Sean. He's the general manager of Triumph Gaming. Super excited to have you on, Sean.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here, dude. I love doing podcasts.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's always great to have another episode. I know we're really Challengers focused, so it's a blessing to have prominent members of the community. I mean, Triumph Gaming, one of the few orgs that we're blessed to have in the scene as well. So, Rusto, it's a pleasure to have you. Real quick, of course, start of every episode, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Respawn and Artesian, great chairs, and great PC building company. So we're gonna get to that later in the episode, but I believe Zach, you have a quick announcement for us as well.
Yeah, guys, so if you can maybe tell, you're not exactly on the same YouTube channel as usual. So we have decided to partner with C2C Update to start unifying the content that we're putting out on the challengers topics and the challengers scene. So that's why we're going to be streaming on here from now on. We really want to make sure that whenever we put out content for you guys, because we plan on keep on doing the podcast, but as well we want to go to non-live content and do that sort of stuff, and we want to make sure that that stays in a central place where everybody can have easy access, so that way we can have more value, more education, and more information about challengers.
Yeah, I know we're for sure excited. I mean, Sean, you've probably seen it too. Like CDC at this point is kind of the unofficial, official home of all things challengers, especially on Twitter. So just having that partnership between us is just perfect, and it's only going to lead to great things in the future. So we're blessed to have them on our side.
I think it's a great fit for you guys. I think it's a good move considering when I went and checked out Zach's YouTube from last week, saw like a bunch of Genshin Impact videos. So I think that this is a really smart move for you guys. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey man, I love
I
my
don't know,
anime.
Zach. you got to separate that.
That's no problem, dude.
But yeah. All right. So Sean, once again, thank you for coming. And of course, just general overview following the great introduction that Zach gave you. How'd you really get into esports and just video games in general?
Well, I think the video games in general story is a bit drab at this point, right? I think everybody, I don't know, everybody our age. Well, I don't know. How old are you guys actually?
We're both 19.
We're both 19.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
you're young bloods. Yeah, I'm a little older, so I'm 28. But like even as old as I am, I played video games my whole life. So I mean, it is what it is. I think my esports history is a little bit shorter than most. Like I actually didn't get into esports till about 4 years ago. Originally, it was because I was streaming. Actually, I just started streaming like I don't know 5-6 years ago, just variety streaming. Didn't really have any success in that, but I started competing like at a low level, and I realized how much I loved it. That was like, well, 4 years ago now. It's maybe 2017, very early 2017. Maybe even February. It's probably been exactly 4 years. And so I tried my hand in creating my own org off the rip, which was a huge mistake because I didn't know anything at the time. I was kind of an idiot, and so I started, working in Overwatch. That was the game I primarily worked in, and I actually worked in Overwatch for like 3 years. Had a lot of success in Overwatch in North America. 7 seasons of contenders. Got to travel to Korea with my last team. Worked for LAG Academy, which actually, if you guys are familiar with the CDL, you might be familiar that LAG's also got an Overwatch League team named LAG, and I managed their academy team, and that was as recently as the end of 2019. So I really just managed and coached in Overwatch for many years. I joined Triumph after LAG shut down the academy team, and that was last December. So it's been over a year since I've joined Triumph, and for the most part, I've just been managing and coaching teams. Prior to being in esports, again, I allude to the fact that I'm very old. I worked in sales management for a long time, so I felt like my experience in Overwatch taught me that there was not like a lot of good leadership in tier 2 esports. There was not really a lot of people that knew what they were doing. It's just like a lot of ambitious, young people, and not really a lot of like experienced, management skills. So I just been on this path ever since, man.
It's great to hear. I mean, anything in challengers is always going to be great for the scene, and the experience that you bring to a team like Triumph is clearly proven to be great. But you did mention that you've been into games since you were a kid. I mean, you grew up playing them, and of course, stepping over to the COD side of things, do you have like a first Call of Duty or a most memorable one?
It's really funny that I'm on the Call of Duty podcast and that we have like a pretty big Call of Duty team, I suppose. And I've actually come to love Call of Duty now because when I was younger, I actually hated Call of Duty. I thought it was a terrible game. I was a big Halo player.
Yeah.
So at the time, like back in like when Halo 3 came out, like 2007, it was kind of seen like Halo was the superior shooter and COD was just kind of like this like cheap sort of arcadey version of a shooter. It didn't take any skill, So I kind of like felt that way when I was in high school. So I didn't really play COD at all. I think the first COD I ever played had to have been the first Modern Warfare. I don't know what year that would have been, maybe 2008 or something.
Got you.
was
First thing there, I thought you were going to say 2019 Modern Warfare.
No.
Okay, good.
Oh man, you haven't had some
No,
very good
no.
CODs if that's the case.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's what it sounded like. No. Like
No, you're
the
good.
very first, like
Yeah, COD 4.
yes, COD 4. Yeah, so that was the first time. But I really was a big Halo player in high school, and then after high school, I got into like a lot of casual games. Like it's a little embarrassing, but I got really into like Minecraft and a lot of casual games like that.
It's nothing bad about that.
More RPG.
Every dude has like a 2-week Minecraft phase, like at least twice a year. Okay.
My
you do
Minecraft
not-
phase. Yeah, I go back and forth still to this day. I'm getting old, and I still play it occasionally.
Yeah.
It's a good game to like lower the blood pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got really into Overwatch when it came out. So 2015 to like 2019, I was really big into Overwatch.
What drew you to the
Mhm.
game?
To what game?
Overwatch, sorry.
Overwatch.
I don't know. I thought like when Overwatch came out, I just thought it was like the best game on the planet. I just think tactically, teamwork wise, it just is. It should be the best game. Period. I think that the only reason Overwatch is not really like doing so hot right now is just because the way Activision handled the professional scene. I really think the game itself is like the best competitive game on the planet. At least when it's good. There's something about it, man. I don't know. It's really good.
Got you. It's just one of those games.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Overwatch.
Yeah, dude,
Do you
it's so
have
fun
a
to
main?
watch. Like, I don't even understand like some of the intricacies of it, but like, I'm always down to watch some OWL.
I think it's pretty complicated to watch, man. I think that's like one of the big reasons the league has struggled. It's just hard to follow. Like if you're a casual fan, it's really hard to follow what's going on. But once you understand the game, it's just tactically like so involved and it's just very complex,
Yeah. So, yeah, Overwatch, that history. I love how you mentioned how you're a bit of a Halo elitist in high school. Okay, I'm a bit younger than you, but I was the exact same way. So I definitely get you there. I want to talk a little bit more about Triumph. So tell me about like the history of Triumph and like maybe like what was your guys' entrance or what was your guys' relationship with COD like before the CDL and how that translated once like CDL happened and now.
Yeah, so I wasn't around with Triumph when they were founded, although I was friends with people that founded Triumph. So Triumph's not very old. It was founded, I believe, at the very beginning of 2019. So we're talking like January, like it's about. I think our 2-year anniversary just passed last month.
Gotcha.
By some ex-pros, some guys that have all kind of moved on from the Overwatch scene and such. Originally, Triumph was just an Overwatch team, so that's why I was really familiar with them.
Gotcha.
I joined Triumph, last year when I joined Triumph is because LAG dropped their academy team and I had no place to go. So they reached out to me right away. At the time in the Overwatch scene, I was kind of like, I don't know, like the longest lasting person in the scene kind of. And so they reached out to me like literally within a couple of hours. And I just decided to join their Overwatch team. And I did so knowing that within time I would be general manager, kind of like I told the guy that owned Triumph at the time, like, I'll manage a team, but I want to do more, and over the course of like early last year, we had way more than just a COD team and a CSGO team. We also had Apex teams, Overwatch teams. We tried to have a Valorant team when the game came out. So we try to keep our hands in a lot of different games, but as far as why we are where we are now, I think this last year was really tough for everyone with COVID, of course. And like financially, it's really tough to raise capital to like expand and to bring on more teams and to have facilities. It's very difficult to do for a company as small as ours. So
For sure.
we really just narrowed it down to like the 2 games that we thought were sort of the best to operate in. And that was CSGO and COD. you know, originally and still to this day, like my vision for Triumph and like what our goals are is to be an organization that develops the next generation of professional talent. You know, and I hate to just like throw that word vomit out there, but I just feel like it is something that is missing in tier two esports in general. I've worked in a lot of games, and I mean, in the AM scene in most games, there is not many orgs like putting forth, you know, their time and resources to develop people. Not a lot of good leadership. So I think Call of Duty is a really great opportunity for us to do that now that COD has moved to the franchise format. Because you know we can't qualify for the league, so the best we can do is just focus on getting players to the league. You know, which is like exactly what we want to do. It's like perfectly in our wheelhouse. So that's why we're still in COD. And of course, anybody that's listening to the podcast probably knows this. Like we won Challengers Champs last year. We had the best team in Modern Warfare and the the inferior Modern Warfare. Um,
There you
and
go.
um, you know, even though the year's been online and everything, I think you know we were very successful last year, and we're just trying to keep the train moving this year, despite you know everything that's been going on.
Yeah, for sure. I love how you say that, right? Like how you're trying to say like you're trying to build the next generation because like you've already done it, right? Like in a sense, I mean, you won last year's Challengers season, and on top of that, like Elite hasn't even started yet, and you've already got a player who's signed as a sub to the world champs.
Yeah, well, last year didn't go as well as we thought it would in terms of the off season. If I'm being honest, I do got to say like I appreciate that perspective, and like I do feel like we achieved a lot in our first year in COD.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to like understate that, but I do feel a little like gutted about how this offseason went with no expansion teams and the shrinking to 4v4 because it cost a lot of people on our team an opportunity, you know, and it is what it is now. You know, I don't get hung up on it, but I believe that if we had done our job properly last year and we won challengers and we had the best team in the most dominant region, I think all of those guys should have been in the league, but because of the shrinking of the league and the circumstances at hand, you know, it didn't happen. And we knew about Fellow going to Dallas for a long time. That actually was in the works for like, dude, I don't know, 4 months. Like it was literally the worst kept secret of all time. So Fellow got a sub spot, which is great, and Connor also got a sub spot, Diamond Con with
Yeah.
New York, which for him, very fortunately, turned into a starting spot to some extent. So, I mean.
Mhm.
But I think like royalty should be in the league. I think Standy should be in the league, like undisputed.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to try harder this year. I don't know.
Yeah. Quick question. I mean, we are talking about players in the history of Triumph. What was the whole Doug situation, if you're comfortable talking about that? I know towards the end of last year, you
Oh.
guys partnered with Subliners. He came on and then was dropped.
Yeah, so I think people were confused by the situation, but it wasn't actually that involved or that, you know, I don't mind
Mhm.
talking about it. At the time, you know, we were struggling as a team, and so we had like some internal sort of beef, which I'm not a fan of course, and it had kind of gotten to the point where it just was not fixable, and so we had little over a month until champs, and we were like, look, we're not going to go out like this, so we had to make a change on the team if we wanted to win. We just had to.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so we did tryouts, and it's so funny because I knew how good Fire was, and I don't mean to implement Fire in this conversation, but
Mhm.
we had this list of players that we were going to try out, and it ultimately came down to Fire or Doug, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone on paper kind of sees like the long-term potential of Fire is way higher than like Sensor's long-term potential. You know, he's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when we did tryouts, Sensor played really fucking well. Like he killed it. He really did. Like he killed it. He brought everything that we needed to win. Like in the first couple days of scrims, we just thought hey, this is perfect. It's a win-win. Like,
Mhm.
and then in order to have him play on our team, because we're an organization, like we had to get him not on loan from New York, but we had to be an affiliate of New York, which is very simple paperwork. It just gets filed with the league, gets put on a shelf. It's whatever. It's only till the end of the year, so it wouldn't have done anything for this year. New York at the time told us like, you know, we don't really want an academy this year or anything like that. So we'll just let Doug play on your team. We'll sign the affiliate paperwork and you guys go ahead. It was not that hard.
Mhm.
And then like within 2 weeks we realized like, oh, Doug is not playing that well on our team actually, and we realized we were not going to win. Like,
Mhm.
so then we brought in Connor and played super well, and it was the perfect fit, and we won at the right time. But
Exactly.
Doug and everybody on our team and me and Doug, like we're all on good terms. I think he understands. Like the guy was benched for like the entire year, so he was just behind because New York didn't play him. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
And
remember him
Yeah, I
bringing
think.
up the whole situation about like scrim time and how he's trying to get scrim time. I remember that whole video.
yeah, and I had him on. I don't mean to bump my podcast on yours, but like I had him on Triumph's podcast a couple months
Mhm.
ago, and we talked about the situation. He obviously felt really strongly about the way his time at New York was handled, and I have no opinion. I wasn't there, but he knows that like if you're a player and you don't play for like 6 to 8 months, you're going to be behind everyone else. So I mean, he
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
understands that the reason why we didn't end up sticking with him last year was because he was behind, and I mean it is what it is.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you said a word a little bit a while back. You were talking about COVID and how you felt like players should be in the league, specifically like your squad that won last year. It was expansion. So when that
Yeah.
word, that's kind of like a trigger word for Amworgs, right? Then you get all the
Yeah.
fans riled up, and you're like, okay, who's
Yeah.
going to be the 4 teams because we want to go to 16, or if we double the size of the league, who's going to be the next 12, So and then it's always like picking names and picking orgs. What comes to mind like from an org perspective, or maybe you can even get more specific like from a GM's perspective when the word expansion is said?
Well, if you're an organization and challengers and you want to get involved in the league, and you know that like we're going to be going on to like last year, it was obvious that if everything had gone to plan and there wasn't COVID kind of throwing a wrench in the works,
Yeah.
everyone knew there was going to be slots open for grabs, and all you have to
Mhm.
do with the Activision League is put in a formal bid basically with their office. You have to talk to their office. Now, I've been around for a while in Overwatch, so like I know this, but basically it's just like if you don't have an investment group that has like 20-30 million dollars ready to go, then you're probably not going to get a spot. So I think like if you're in challenges as an organization, your goals have to be a little different because the odds of you getting a league spot are near zero, frankly. And really, like this season will probably be the best opportunity ever because like the league will expand once, and then it will
Mhm.
start. It'll probably expand again, but it'll be less teams. Like you're not going to see expansions every year. So I mean, right now as an organization, this is probably the only time that we can even be thinking about expansion and thinking about like getting into the league with our own spot, maybe managing a spot for an investment group. But in the future, I mean, it's not really going to be a realistic goal, and that's why like our goals, our business model as an organization has to be around moving people up and sort of like documenting that journey and like getting people to the league and having our impact that way. Um, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't know. A lot of people don't want to talk about like what it means to run an organization in challengers. I think that a lot of people that um, are from Call of Duty for many years sort of still, how do I put this? Like, people are still kind of not confused, but a little bit like shell shocked.
Unaware. Mhm.
Yeah, unaware, but it's like it's not like no one gets it. It's just everyone's a little bit shell shocked by the move
Yeah.
to the franchise league, and so I still hear
Mhm.
people regularly in conversations say, "Oh, like we want a spot in the league." Like organizations saying that. It's like that's not how it works now. You
Yeah.
don't, as an organization, you don't just get a spot in the league. You have to have tens of millions of dollars ready to go. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunately the case, but
Yeah, and obviously you have that familiarity with it because of your years in Overwatch, and which is an IP who's also
to some
a
extent.
Blizzard.
And I want to be clear. I still think that everybody like right now, like I know Gersh, you work for Wester. Like Wester's
Yeah.
obviously having a good year so far. Like everybody that's working in challenges right now, the goal should not be to like get your own spot in it necessarily, but the goal is to put together a team that's going to be a really really good package for a potential expansion organization, right? So if some random VC buys like a Boston spot, in the off season, then like you want to be in the best position possible as a package deal to make sure that everybody on your team like gets moved at the same time in the expansion. But you're not realistically going to own the expansion or anything. You just try to like make a unit that could be moved together. That would be like the best case scenario, I guess, for expansion for people like us.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
really
that's
different
actually
way to think about it.
Yeah. I was gonna follow up with you about that. Like everything you said about just the way it is in terms of presentation. Like I've really kind of got that hands-on experience at Wester. It's for sure been completely different. I mean, I was before Wester, I was just only socials, just working the social scene, and then with Wester, it's been, hey, like we need partnerships. We're trying to legitimize the brand on a professional level, as you just said, kind of build that package deal, try to market our players as well. And Paul just turned 19. I'm 19. I turned 19 in December, so we're just two teenagers trying to tackle the world of corporate esports, right? So it's been interesting there. But quick follow up for what you just said, and kind of asking that question to you as well. Like, what do you think ends up happening to Wester?
I mean, to be honest, like if they keep winning, like if we go into elite and they're winning cups or regularly, then or I'm sorry, winning. I don't know what they're called, elite series regularly, like
Yeah,
once.
it's the qualifiers this weekend, and then Elite Series, I think.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like I guess you win.
series.
Yeah. So I mean, if they continue to win, I think basically going into next year, I think it's safe to expect expansion. As for who owns the slots, I have to imagine that the conversations were going on last year are going to carry over this year. So a lot of the orgs that you expected to pick up spots going to season 2, they probably still have those deals ready to go. So there'll probably be 4 expansion teams. If COVID miraculously goes away in the middle of the year, maybe there's more. So if you're a top AM team, I think realistically it is not out of the question to go as a package deal to an expansion org.
Hopefully.
I think when expansion happens, I mean, you're talking like if there's 4 teams, what's the minimum? 5 players. So
yeah,
you're talking 20 players are going to get moved out one way or another between EU and NA. So if you're on the top 2 NA team, like there's no doubt in my mind you're going to go to the league next year. But you have to. I think the only thing you could do is just stay consistent, stay together, and try to market yourself in the meantime.
Here.
So less from like a general manager or business guy perspective, more so maybe like just like a viewer of the scene. If you were to like pick the 4, and let's say like it was none of them were VCs, okay, venture capitalists for those that don't know. Let's say all of them were like endemic orgs. What 4 would you specifically like to see?
Oh, like organizations
to buy into
like
the league,
running spots. Well, I think COD is very lucky because we have in Call of Duty all the major players. We have Optic, we have 100 Thieves now. We have FaZe. So, I mean, other than that, like, who do I want to see? To be honest, I would love to see Complexity get back into COD. I would love to see Complexity actually work with Activision. I think they're one of the best orgs. I don't think they will. I think that's a long shot. I think a lot of the orgs I want to see come in are a bit of a curveball for COD people. For instance, a lot of people say like Rise. I don't necessarily think Rise is gonna. I don't know. I wouldn't really. I think what you want to see is you want to see Cloud9. You want to see Complexity. You want to see Liquid. Like it would be nice to get these people in the system because they have so far avoided working in the Activision leagues between OWL and CDL. So, and these are the organizations that do their jobs the best. I think that it's really important that we have 100 Thieves. It's really important that we have Optic and FaZe because those guys kind of bring, all the COD, like pretty much 100% of COD history comes with those 3 teams. Yeah. And Envy also. I mean, really those 4. I think now what you want to see in the league in terms of organizations coming in are organizations that are not going to screw players over, organizations that have good reputations, like Deep Pockets, people that are not going to just tweet once a month and you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of organizations, like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's a lot of organizations running CDL slots that I think have no business being in the space at all. Completely unprofessional people. So like what you would want is people like Cloud9, Liquid. Those would be big, So Complexity I think would be huge.
So you said Cloud9, Liquid, and then Cole. You think you mentioned TSM. Do you think TSM would be a good fit for that fourth?
I think TSM has the money.
Yeah, I know
I
they've
think
specifically
TSM,
like the only franchise league they're in is League, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, they've tried to get back in other esports. I think that I don't know honestly why they're not in a lot of big titles. I also think other sort of wild card orgs I'd love to see if for a fourth slot, maybe TSM, maybe Gen G. I would like to see, and even FlyQuest. I like FlyQuest a lot. I think they need to expand out of League.
I love their people. Their staff are great. They're super nice
Yeah,
guys.
they're
Super nice
phenomenal.
people. I mean,
I think those are the people we need to be fighting for to run spots, to be honest. And maybe Triumph. I would love to run a spot, but I'm not going to find $40 million anytime soon, I think.
And I think a huge underrated part of what you said. I mean, you were scared to throw out, well, not scared, but you were kind of apprehensive to throw out names that most of the COD community hasn't really heard of, like from other esports, especially like CS, League. But I think a huge thing that people don't really keep in mind is if there's an established org, like we talked about TSM playing League, that have their fan base there, that huge org coming over to COD is going to just create the market and expand it to even bigger heights. So I think it'd be
Yes, yeah.
sick. Like I've thought about, because I used to follow CS back in high school. I don't know.
Like
There's certain orgs
like last month, you mean?
yeah, like
No.
6 months ago, Gersh.
Class of 2019. Okay, I got to walk the stage, but
Dang, you really roasted me like
yeah.
that.
Pain. No, but real talk, like I think there's really great established orgs out there that would be great to have in COD. And I mean, just asking you another question is from your analytical perspective. If you could, like, I know you said you don't have 40 mil, but let's say you had like 400 mil. If you could take over Challengers right now and do whatever you wanted to the format, structure, anything, what would you implement and what would you change?
Well, I will say, yeah, it's a good question. It's actually a really good question. I told you before the podcast, like I have a lot of opinions about this, and I think I actually have annoyingly maybe too many opinions about this because the league is run very similar to the way the Overwatch League was, and I think Overwatch League is going to die, which is not exactly it's not exactly a hot take, to be honest. I think if you ask anyone in esports, it's kind of like known. And I think that the reason why their league is failing is because of the way that they treated their challenger scene, which is called contenders. I don't think that they acted quick enough on actually developing, all the different regions and having clear paths to professional play for aspiring players. And fortunately, I think the CDL is being a lot more receptive about this, and I think Activision knows that they screwed up with Overwatch. So to be honest with you, in the off season, like a couple weeks after we won champs, I reached out to Activision, to Joanna, to Matt, and I talked to their team about like feedback for the Challenger season that we played. Because I think if anyone's going to give you feedback, it's going to be the team that played the entire year and won. Like
Exactly.
And they were very open. They were very open, like to feedback, and a lot of the implementation of stuff this year it comes directly from my feedback as well as other teams' feedback to them. So the implementation of like a scouting series at the start of the year, sort of like an NFL combine, the implementation of elite really, and having the separation between the top teams so that like the top 8 teams don't have to play 8 hours of nonsense every Saturday. Like they can just focus on playing like the top 8 teams every week. Better streaming for elite. All these things are actually being implemented now, so a lot of the changes are already happening, which is good.
Good to hear.
And I'm very happy about it, man. I mean, it's honestly been spectacular. Like as an aside, I've got to say that in my 3 years in Contenders, we're Overwatch, nobody listened to a single ounce of feedback that anyone gave them. So I'm really like sort of surprised at the reception in COD, and I'm very happy by it, and not everything that was suggested they went through with,
Of course.
I do have one thing that if you gave me control, there is one thing that I feel very strongly about, that I think has to be implemented eventually to some extent, for the league to succeed, and certainly for the league to thrive. And that would be like a talent draft. I really think there needs to be sort of like a mandated path for people that are winning to get to the league, if you don't like promote talent from challengers, people will stop playing challengers. Once challengers dies, the league's going to die. So in its current form.
Yeah.
So I think you
I
have to
know,
have a
yeah.
draft.
I think you sharing that vision right now, like I know for sure is heartwarming for myself and Zach. A huge motivation for us starting this podcast as well was just to bring all that attention to the challengers scene. And I agree completely, dude. Like challenger scene is only going to grow the community, and it is like the direct path for anyone that's just cracked at COD, spends their whole day grinding GBs, nights too, to get in the professional scene. And it's just a lot more tangible than seeing all those pros on the main stage. You've got Optic Scumpy with 4 mil on YouTube, right? And the fact that you share that vision as well, it's just like it's heartwarming to
Yeah,
Well,
to
it
usually
really is.
yeah.
Like when I sold this, when I tried to tell Gersh about this podcast originally, it was like however many months ago, and I was originally trying to sell him and Justin on the idea. I said the reason I want to do this is because we have enough people fighting and clawing for the top of tier 1, right? What we need is people at the base, so that way when COD is now like 5 or 10 years from now, whenever it's like a high school like nationally recognized sport, we can actually like have that foundation and that infrastructure.
yeah. Well, look, I mean, one of the reasons I came on the podcast is not just because I think I look good on a camera.
You do.
I
Hey, man.
like seeing what you guys are doing. Not that I'm like some moral compass, but I agree with you that I think that it's imperative that the challenger scene thrives if we want the CDL to thrive. And so people have to take initiative, like starting podcasts, covering challengers. People like I Hold Shift and his band of merry men have done like a really, really good job at covering matches, streaming, doing community streams. All this stuff is imperative. And I guess that leads into sort of a secondary point um, to when you ask like, how would you make challengers better? It's really important ultimately for organizations to be involved in challengers. So organizations paying player salary, representing players, organizations behind media, doing podcasts, doing shows behind challengers, like covering challengers. You have to have cash flow basically going through challengers to support challengers because challengers has to exist.
Yeah.
And it all comes from like however, it's really hard for organizations to be in challengers because there's not a huge return on investment. There's virtually no return on investment.
Yeah.
Prize pools are relatively low. I mean, we won, I think, more prize pool than anyone last year. And all things considered, I'm going to be honest with you, like we lost 6 figures last year on COD alone. We lost a lot of money on COD. And part of that's because we kind of gambled big thinking we would get into some sort of expansion deal. And like we thought like more of our players would go, and it is what it is. But it's not tenable for organizations to be paying like what we pay or what BBG pays if there's no viewership, if there's no coverage, if the prize pools are low. And so that's why another reason why I think you have to kind of have a player draft. Like you have to mandate some sort of relationship between the CDL and challengers to bring people up regularly. Otherwise, you're not going to have any orgs investing. And once orgs stop investing, challengers is going to suffer. It's going to be a bunch of pickup teams where people prove.
So
Yeah, dude.
when you say like implementing like cash flow into challengers, do you mean like maybe like like giving works like stipends?
Well, I mean directly or indirectly. Just like there has to be cash flow for players to be able to compete.
Gotcha. Just like in general.
In general, like all I'm saying is like from the most basic level, if you're an aspiring professional player and you want to get to the league, you're going to be practicing the game 8 to 12 hours a day. If you want to be on a top team, you probably have team practice 6 to 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, right? That's a huge fucking time investment and energy investment for everybody that's aspiring to be professionals. This is not news, right? This has been this way forever in every game, whatever. If you can't pay your bills while doing this at the top of the scene, at the top of challengers, then it's not sustainable is what I mean, right? So there has to be cash flow, either organizations that are investing their money to pay player salaries or prize pools being large, all these things kind of have to kind of come together. But it's just general cash flow, like it has to be profitable. And so improvements have to continue to be made at challengers to make it make sense for organizations to invest the money. Because once organizations stop investing money, then what I'm saying is it makes it really hard for players to continue to grind,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
And so far we're good, I think. But yeah, just like long term, that would be what the focus would be if I were given $400 million in control over challenges. That's kind of the thought process, I guess.
Yeah, I really love the way you answer that question, dude. Like, just thinking about it, like, there's so many different things, but I think like you picked like a few really good points and you gave like really good reasonings for them. Like, I especially think that the whole cash flow thing is a really like one big problem long term, but two, it's a really good like thought provoking thing to think about. Um,
Mhm.
Before we do head on though, I do want to mention one of our sponsors, Artesian Builds. Guys, I cannot stress how amazing these guys are. Okay, they are some of the not only like most dope looking PCs ever. Okay, they also are super hands on with your process. Okay, they're not one of these big conglomerate corporations where they're sending you out like what's basically a pre-built, right? They're working with you one on one if you're building a custom PC. On top of that, if you order your PC, they'll send you an email giving you a Twitch link and a date, and you can actually watch your PC get built live on stream, which I didn't even think about that. I just thought it was cool. But when I told Gersh about this, he was like, yo, that's like great quality assurance because if they F up your PC, they're effing it up live on a live stream, right? So it's a great product to think about. They've built some of the biggest content creators in all of esports and all of Twitch's PCs. They've built Mizkif's, which was like 10 grand plus. They built Tommy's, and we all know how much of a monster he is at Warzone, right? So just keep Artesian builds in mind when you're thinking about a PC, because honestly, guys, I don't know if there's a better PC on the market. So
And code ladder for I think it's like up to $100 off, right? So
yeah,
if you're getting like a GPU in there, dude, that's probably like one of the most expensive parts of your PC. So just knock the $100 off, use our code, and it's all going to benefit both of us, right?
yeah.
Speaking of, yeah, you got something there, Zach?
No,
No,
You guys
okay.
are great ad readers. I can listen to your ad rates all day. That's phenomenal.
thank you.
Speaking of ad reads, we do also want to thank Respawn Chairs. I know Rusto, aka Sean, right here, sitting on a wonderful Respawn chair. Title sponsor for Triumph as well, right?
Yes, yeah. Respawn's
There we
been
go.
great. I this is actually inadvertently a great ad because I love Respawn. I truly do. I love those guys.
Yep. I actually had my follow-up doctor's appointment today. I've been telling Zach I fractured my back last year, so having the wonderful lower back support on this RSP 200 has been amazing. So Respawn definitely has the quality in their chairs. They've got quality in desks as well and quality in business, which is why we're thankful to have them as sponsors. So guys, likewise to Artesian, go ahead and run a code ladder on Respawn, get a discount there, and be sure to use some of their products. And yeah, Zach, anything to add?
One thing I will add about Respawn is, guys, I didn't fracture my back. You know, I'm not that bad, but prior to working in esports, you know, I was a high school student. I do all the bad habits, right? Bad posture, slouching, all that sort of stuff. I had very bad chronic back pain. I was on a Respawn chair for like 3 months, went away, dude. I fucking love standing up now. Like, it's funny as it is to say, right? Like, it doesn't hurt anymore, which is great. I really think you can compare Respawn to a brand like Herman Miller. You know, maybe they're not as flashy and they're not as luxury, but you want to know what? You don't need to be spending thousands of dollars on a chair when you got Respawn, who gives you the exact same quality and the exact same kindness and genuine product for like what, a third of the price. So
yeah, dude. And
Listen,
I think a huge thing. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna improve your guys' ad. I'm gonna be straight up. Now, this is not Zach or Gersh saying this, but I'm gonna tell you right now, dude. I went and looked up Mavix chairs. I went and looked up the prices. I gotta tell you, dude, they are not worth it. So get yourself a Respawn, dude. Do not spend $1,000 on a chair, bro. Don't do it.
Honestly,
just get a 300. Get a nice Respawn, dude.
Dude, RSP 200, the Spectre just came out. That thing is looking really nice right now. It's like what, like 250, 350, something like that. It's great chairs, great chairs.
Honestly, and it's much better than those racer chairs they have out there. The overpriced, like $500 ones, right, with the weird frame to them as well.
All jokes aside, getting a chair, like getting a good chair, will change your life. Like,
yeah,
1000%.
I don't know if you guys are just lying about the back pain to make the ad read better, but like, yeah,
no,
getting.
I wish
it's really.
I will show you my medical file right now.
It's okay. I believe you, dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to our sponsors once again, and of course, Sean, I'm sure you're aware we have our elite qualifiers this weekend, If you aren't,
course.
now you are, right?
I've got the bracket in front of me, brother. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I actually have the standings in front of me right now, as in the seeding. So I did want to read them out real quick and get your thoughts on the elite, but also Triumph's moves going forward. So 10th place, we have Toronto Academy, right, including Insight. 9th place, we have Team Stamino, featuring Stamino, of course. 8th place, we've got the one and only Triumph Gaming. Great org right there. 7th place is Team Fellow with Nagafen, Decimate, some notable names on there. 6th place is Team Sib, alongside Hollow. 5th place is Higher, another org. 4th place is BBG, of course, former pros there as well. Kismet, GodRx. 3rd place is Team Phantoms with Jintroid, Wester's very own. Number 2 is going to be Subliners Academy, of course, your Cup number 5 champions, featuring Glowfrosty, Hamza. And number 1 is Wester. So, what are your guys' thoughts going into this Elite Series? Do you think you guys qualify? I mean, I think that's a really obvious question. But yeah, what's the mindset going forward? Just everything A to Z. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, to be honest with you, like we feel really good as a team. I think I speak for everyone when I say that. I'm often in practice with them, and I was actually in their practice today briefly. And I just feel like right now everything's clicking properly. So we feel very confident going this weekend. I think in double elimination, like, only against top 32 teams, I really think top 8 is almost guaranteed. I think if we didn't make top 8, it would be a blunder a little bit. But I've got to say, like so far the cups this year have been so wild that, I mean, every week it's like some different surprise. I mean, we lost one weekend to a literal wall hacker. So it's like, I think as far as my outlook for Elite, I think everybody on the team is just really excited to be in sort of a more elite group of people, like a more, elite group of teams where we don't have to worry about people cheating every other day, and like we don't get knocked out in top 32 when we know we're a top 8 team. I mean, as far as how the team's going, I feel like everything's coming together at the right time, so we'll definitely qualify for this weekend. And then I think once Elite starts, like it's really our series to lose, to be honest.
And then on the bracket, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, but the thing I'm looking at says Seed 8 would be playing Seed 25 for top 16. Yeah. So that means you guys are going to be up against Team Vinny, I believe. Do you have any information on them or any thoughts?
We actually haven't played them all year, but we're fully prepared about them. We talked about this today, and then I believe round 2 we'll be playing Beezy's team, and I think we scrimmed them once. I mean, we're not too worried. The hardest match would be round 3, actually, when we play Wester. And and worst case scenario for Wester, I guess, like the team that beat us last week is D-Gen, so Wester has to face them second round. So it's either going to be D-Gen or Wester, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Wester. And I think we're prepared. We've been scrimming. Like I said,
I was just going to say.
Yeah, I think
I got a quick note.
Round 3, the bracket's pretty straightforward, right? Like a lot of the matches are pretty one-sided.
No, dude, I got a quick note about Team D-Gen. That was just my thing. Like, I think it was great to see last weekend. Of course, Wester didn't win, but just from a challenger's perspective, like seeing all those teams kind of step up. Dark Horses come out. Team D-Gen finishing top 3. Quick note for you, Sean. I used to work there, right? So as soon as Wester got knocked out, Team D-Gen moved on. Everyone's like DMing me like, "Hey, Gersh, how do you feel?" And I'm like, "No, dude, great guys, right?" Yeah, for D-Gen. I used to run socials there, but happy to see them succeeding. Great organization there, and I think it gives me a lot of hope. Like the amount of competitiveness we're going to see this weekend with former pros on those teams that know to step up. We've got John competing. They're top 32 right now, but you never know, right? So it's going to be a competitive weekend, and I'm so excited. Like
I'm excited too. Yeah, I'm excited. And I said this when the season started. Like this year is like twice as competitive as last year's challengers. I mean, it's literally so much different than last year. It's like the seeding up until now has been almost completely random because there's been so many upsets, and it's really legitimately hard to get the top 8 now. Like last year, it felt like the top 8 teams were always the top 8 teams. There was really no variation. There were really like 4 competitive teams in NA consistently. This year, it just feels like anything goes. Like there's so many more competitive teams, and like, I mean, it's because it's a 4-man teams instead of 5, right? It's just so much more competitive this year, man. It's been awesome.
Hopefully it's still competitive. Like I literally just can't wait. Yeah, I think that was all we really had regarding the Elite Series. I know hopes are high for everyone, and it should be great experience. We've never really had anything like specifically detailed as this is in the past, so it's gonna be interesting learning experience for everyone, and hopefully it goes well. I think what we do have planned next is just throwing it to chat real quick. If anyone in chat has any questions, I know Zach, you might have a follow up right there. Zach's big on challenges as well, so yeah, if you guys have questions, be sure to drop them. We've got Sean live, and yeah.
Yeah, so I do have one
Yeah.
question for you. So I hear this talk a lot about whether or not and I hear it's mostly one sided actually. I hear most people agree with the note that CDL teams should have academy rosters and that like that should be what Elite is. Um Basically like how LCS does it. Do you think
Right.
that that's like the correct way to go about it, or do you think having more of an open sort of field like how CWL was, do you think that's more of the route to go?
Um, I think this has been a conversation not only in COD. Like, fortunately I dealt with this in the Overwatch League for a long time too. So this has been a conversation for many years. I'm still not sure which path is the best one, like long term. Because really, there's two options. You either have like something like the like League of Legends has, where you have academy teams with all your franchises in their own league by themselves. I mean, you could conceivably do that. And with the way that the CDL is set up, a lot like traditional sports leagues like the NBA. My cat's meowing. Can you hear
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries, bro. I love cats.
I won't bring her on the camera, but I gotta get her to shut up. What I was trying to say is, with the way the NBA has it set up, like they all have sort of their practice squads or their D League squads, which would be kind of like what you're suggesting, having an academy team mandated for every team having their own league. I think you could do that. I think it would be fine. But I also think there's something to be said about the open nature of challengers being all together with the top challengers teams in the mix. I think that COD teams and the COD community is sort of used to that open bracket format. So taking that away from COD would be, it would be, I think, really weird for the players. But I think you could do it. As far as like whether or not it's better long term for the success of the league, I'm not sure. To your point about, or to your question about mandating academy teams for every league team, I do think we should get to that point eventually. But right now, it's a huge ask financially to ask these organizations to run two teams, because a lot of these organizations are having trouble running one. So, if they were to mandate it, I think a lot of the partners would want to pull out, or they would default on their commitments or something to the league. So I know Activision doesn't want to piss off any of their league partners.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But I think long term, at the very least, there probably should be incentives somehow to being able to have an academy team, because you would optimally want everybody to have an academy team.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you want to have those high level coaches, that high level involvement in the challenger scene, at the ground level, kind of. But I just think financially, it's a huge ask right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that prompts me with another question. Do you think that now people hate me for this take, but I really do think that, we could have sucked it up and played another year or two of 5v5 so that way we didn't drop 12 players during COVID to fight for their own devices. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that maybe we picked a bad time to go back to 4v4, or do you really think like it's worth?
I mean, again, I don't know. Like, I don't. I think it could have gone either way, and there's arguments to be made that it's the right way to go. Like, I think there's positives and negatives to the move. Obviously, the short term negatives are pretty large. Like, a lot of players lost their jobs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it made it a lot easier for organizations in the CDL to run teams, because it eliminated a huge amount of cost, like a significant amount of cost.
Yeah.
So, at the same like snap of a finger, you have a really good positive and a really bad negative. So I don't know. I mean, I think everyone agrees, though. Generally, the consensus among players is that 4v4 COD is better as a game.
I agree on that. Let me clarify. I agree 4v4 is better. I just think we could have sucked it up until COVID was gone.
Yeah, and I think most people agree. And so really, it's like, it's got to happen eventually. When do you pull the trigger? I don't know. They pulled the trigger, and it is what it is. Long term, I think it'll be perfectly fine. It's just like you have to deal with the short term sort of negatives of people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Which is like antithesis to what the league's supposed to do anyway. It's supposed to be job security, but I don't know. It's too late now, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, if we do get to expansion, do you have your personal like top 3 cities you want to see?
Top 3. I mean, because I live in the U.S., I would love to see more U.S. cities, or North American cities anyway. But I think it'd be really cool to mix in like another EU team. I would love to see maybe a Boston. I don't know. I'm from Detroit. More Asian teams would be good, but I don't think COD is very big in Asia, so I don't suspect we'll see those.
Well, I just think like, because like you were talking about Gen G earlier, right? Like they're both U.S. and I think it's China based. So
Gen G is from South Korea
or South Korea, my bad. Yeah,
and they run. Oh yeah, they're like a South Korean organization. I mean, they run out of LA. Like I think the owner is in LA. Like their main office is in LA, but it's a South Korean org really. And I mean, they have a franchise in the Overwatch League. They have the Seoul Dynasty, so they could get involved. But I just don't think that there's an Asian market for COD. So whereas the Overwatch League has like half the league is Asian teams, I don't think that'll ever be the case in COD.
Gotcha.
I think Sydney would be pretty cool, dude. Like I would like to see maybe like the Renegades guys or whatever get picked up by like a Sydney team and just sort of rep that entire region. I mean,
the Aussies
could be cool. I don't know if they do well. It's impossible to say, but I think it'd be cool.
I think a huge idea I had after seeing that one quad Mexican host team knock out a Doug and actually go pretty far in that tournament.
Host.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think having a Mexican team would be like major vibes. I mean, I'm from California, right? So I grew up in a Latino neighborhood as well, but I think it would be fun.
Listen, that team that knocked out Doug, that team is no joke, man. Those guys, if you put them in the league, they'd be legit. Like we used to play those guys in Modern Warfare. Our team used to play them like round 2 every week somehow. Like those guys were like the sweatiest match most of our weeks. Like it was insane. Those guys.
What was
nuts.
their name again, Gersh?
It was El Sueño Mexicano, which is the Mexican dream.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that core is nuts.
Spanish.
Yeah.
I remember, dude. After they beat who'd they beat? They beat Censor's team, and I remember I was watching them while they were waiting for their next match, and the dude was just dancing to the Mexican national anthem, like he was straight vibes, bro. I loved those guys.
I think I heard a rumor last year about one of the 4 expansion teams potentially being owned by South American ownership. I don't know I can't remember what city it was. I think it might have been Brazil or Rio de Janeiro. I think it was Rio. So if that rumor was true, then I suppose we could see that happen as well. But I think you'll see a lot of NA teams because that's where the majority of the top talent is.
Yeah,
and interest as well.
Yeah, we said someone in chat. I didn't mean to cut you off. We said someone in chat suggests like heretics. I don't know pronunciation,
like
but like they're huge. Yeah,
like Madrid, that would be cool. Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
There's a lot of options, dude.
Yeah,
and I guess you could see like we have 12 teams now. I mean, you could see it go up to 24 teams within a few years. I mean, there's tons of cities. Yeah. Madrid would be cool.
Depends on money, right?
We could breach into that Asian market because I think there's, dude, if we breach into the Asian market, we don't got debatably, we don't have like I guess Asian wise, yeah, we don't have like the culture or the history in Asia like we do in NA. But if we're able to break into that market, dude, we would easily be like, I think because of Warzone we're top 2 esport right now, but I think we could easily be like close to number 1 or fighting for it.
Yeah, COD is definitely, I've been saying this, like, obviously this has been like my first year in COD, and I've just been kind of taken aback by it because it really is like North America's esport. There's no other esport like COD that is as ubiquitous as Call of Duty. Yeah. Maybe Halo back in the day, but not anymore. And it's interesting to me. One of my favorite things to think about is like different markets and how they're interested in different games. Asian markets being more interested in MOBAs, for instance, or games like Overwatch, right? Overwatch League is like 80% Korean talent. Like it's a Korean game, dude. Like, you know what I mean? StarCraft is the same way. And Asians like COD market has got to be near zero, dude. Like, I don't think anyone plays COD. Like a lot of tactical shooters and stuff. Like nobody plays CS:GO really in Asia. You have like 2 teams.
I'll tell you what,
Interesting.
they don't play COD per se, but COD Mobile,
COD Mobile and COD
huge there.
Online.
PUBG
Really?
Mobile, insanely huge. Yeah,
PUBG,
PUBG Mobile
yeah,
was huge until it got banned there, but whole story behind that. But like I'm in touch with the Indian market, right? I got the culture around me, culture in me. Like I think if COD was marketed there, and I think Hex has talked about this too, like he's of course kind of indifferent because of the whole Optic India situation, but I think there's a huge market to be had in Asia, and it's just about the way like COD is presented there and introduced. Because I think like with that level of population and like dedication to the gaming industry that already exists, like it would be great to have that kind of global outreach going on. So
100%. And you know, I don't mean to like sort of like dehumanize it, but like as a
Oh, yeah.
region, like the Asian region is like the biggest region in the world, right? Like that
exactly.
like player base would be insane, the fan base would be insane. Like
Yeah.
it's just curious that they don't already play COD like, you know, as a main esport. I mean, you know, why is that? I don't know. It has to be marketed more. I think also like, for instance, in China, like a lot of Chinese like corporate, you know, Chinese companies, like they don't really use the same like social websites and stuff like that. So like a lot of the marketing is really tough to bring over from North American
Yeah.
scenes.
It is interesting to
Yeah.
think about because like if you think about the legacy that all of these um Korean Asian organizations have, like dude, there's so much there, you know? Like we were talking about Genji, T1, like dude, the whole story of SKT1 Telecom or whatever their whole full name was back in the day, like there's a crazy legacy there, right? And so to think about
Yeah.
it, you know, I think part of it may come from the fact that with the campaign, when that was like a bigger part of COD in general, um it's always been recognized as like an American story, you know? So it's always like American secret
Yeah.
soldiers fight off this nation.
World
or
War
that
II.
nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I think that might be part of it, but also I can agree with you. Like they are, you know, they have the what's the word? The political way that their nation is ran. So they use different things. They operate differently. So
Yeah. China is a bit of a question mark for me, like the Chinese market or like, I mean, even the India market. But South Korea, I've always kind of felt like South Korea is kind of like ground zero for modern esports. Like I think like South Korea was like the first country that really injected esports into its everyday culture. When you go there, like every corner has a PC cafe, right? This is why League of Legends is so big.
Yeah.
Like South Korea, like is the only place I've ever been in my life where people on the street, just average people working at cafes and stuff, like they know esports. Like
yeah,
here,
So
like
want to
you,
move there?
it's great,
Right?
dude, but so it's just interesting because I like the reason games like COD or CS:GO, like shooter games, really don't catch on in South Korea anyway. I don't know why they're not big in China. It's just because it's not in cafes, PC cafes, and there's like a lot of strict regulations. I think on realistic violence. It's probably the same way in most of Asia, and so that's why these games don't catch on. And if they're not at PC cafes, they're never going to be big games like you know in that region. So
do you think the league moving to PC is a good move for that? Do you think like that? I mean, that probably wasn't the intention, right? By changing to PC or trying to reach the Asian market or anything, but like, do you think that's a good move in general for that?
Well, yeah, I don't think it's intentional. Like, I don't think they're thinking about the Asian market when they did that, of course, but it's definitely a necessary move if they want to be involved in the Asian market. Like, for instance, I don't know if you guys really know like the history of like, you know, PC cafes in South Korea. Anyway, it's like the reason PC cafes are a big thing there is because consoles were not allowed in the country. So like when the first like PlayStation, Xbox coming out, like they weren't even allowed. Like you weren't allowed to buy them. So everyone was PC gaming, right? And so there became this huge market at the time to open up PC cafes. This was like whatever in the 80s and 90s, I guess like early 90s. And so their entire culture is based off of like having no consoles. So nobody there plays console games, you know? So yeah, I mean, moving to PC is like a necessary affect, I think, to get into the Asian market.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about it.
And that's why
really
StarCraft is so big.
Yeah.
Because StarCraft was on every PC, you know?
Yeah, and that's why it became the big monster that it did. I mean, what
I
was
think
it?
it, yeah.
Like when we were like little itty bitties in diapers, the lands were like you had like Halo at one venue. It was like all in like one stadium, right? It was like Halo, StarCraft, League. What was it? COD. Even then, like it had like its own like mini
Yeah.
stage, or was it Gears or something? You know.
Yeah, maybe Gears. I
I
mean,
wish
yeah,
that
when you're
was
in
a thing again.
diapers, yeah.
Why did that ever stop? I mean, I guess like because like they want more revenue, right? But like I wish we had
Private equity.
more esports like crossover where it was like it's all just one giant stadium and there's just I can look left and there's League, I can look right and there's Halo. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Spoken like a man that's never gone through legal paperwork, dude. That's what I can
I just
imagine
make
like
memes,
it'd be
man.
really hard.
All right, I'm just trying to have fun and laugh.
Zach just wants the
it's
Coachella of esports.
yeah, it's a good thought. I think it's probably the reason it doesn't happen anymore is just because it's really hard to get developers to like be okay with having someone else's game in their event. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they want to kind of corner the event and be the only game there. I mean, that's probably the reason, but I don't know. I never thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a huge thing that ends up as a result factor of that is just it localizes your market, right? Instead of getting kind of that exposure to the maximum amount of people that you could. I mean,
Yeah.
like for me, it's not hard that if I'm an Empire fan to pick up and follow Dallas Fuel, right? Like I've played Overwatch, so just getting into it isn't that hard, right? And that's because I'm exposed to it, like being in my role at Empire. But like I don't know, I think COD in general is at a disadvantage because it's not as easily marketable to like the general population. It's not a family game where things like Fortnite, right? That to some degree, like you mentioned, the non-realistic violence is so approachable, right, from a branding perspective. But I don't know.
Yeah.
All growth is good growth, and hopefully it's engineered towards that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think like shooters. I'm curious what esports will look like in 20 years because
Yeah.
I don't think there'll ever be a time where. Well, what I should say is like I think eventually like the top 5 esports, none of them will be shooters. None of them will be even semi-realistic actual violence, right? Killing and stuff. I think that's why MOBAs are so successful. It's not like real violence; it's cartoony. I think that's why Valorant is doing really well. And kind of taking a lot of viewership from CS:GO. It's because it's not really realistic. It's fucking ice walls, and you know what I mean. Look, it's not real. I think it's really hard to market to kids. I mean, even though kids all play them anyway. When you were 6 or 7, you were probably playing COD. When I was 10 years old, I was sneaking Grand Theft Auto into my room. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like kids don't understand violence. Yeah, exactly, dude. Like, it's not like kids don't see violence, but it's really hard as a corporation to like promote violence. You know, so
yeah, make that accepted.
Like COD will be the biggest esport in the world when it's just like I don't know teddy bears. You know what I mean?
When we get the Advanced Warfare clown costumes.
Yeah.
The gingerbread men.
the operator skins, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
bro, dude, those have me die. That's some of the funniest operator skins like ever, I have to say.
Fly
I don't
drops,
think
yeah.
anyone did it better. Comedy wise.
Honestly. I think BO3 is big on that with the dances. Remember that? When they first added like the dab and the whip and nene, dude.
You had like the little scene where it's just the top 3 players on the winning team, and so they could just do their emotes.
Oh my god, dude! Imagine that now with TikTok. Like, they'd actually capitalize off of that. Like, just hit the renegade after you go like 15-0, right?
After Sim drops his 62 kills in hardpoint,
exactly.
just hits the well.
Yeah, I think you could send an email, brother. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right, so Activision, if you're watching this, be sure to hire me.
Yeah.
Man, who wish. But yeah, otherwise, if we have any other questions in chat, which I'm looking at. Someone said
StarCraft and the Halo fans screaming louder than the other. I think I heard that from what was it, an Eavesdrop podcast when Hex was talking about it. He's talking about like the first days of Optic when they would go to events. The first Halo team, they would like yell at each other.
I can see that.
It's hard to remember any of this stuff now because we haven't been to events in over a year. It's just like
I mean, LAN in general just feels like a distant memory.
Yeah, I can't believe they ever existed, to be honest.
Yeah. Rocket League. What are your thoughts on Rocket League? I know Triumph's not in that right now, but what are your thoughts on it?
I get a message. Let me be clear. I don't mean this in a rude way, but I get messages from Rocket League teams top NA challengers teams or whatever, like all of the time, like twice a week probably. And I've looked into Rocket League a lot for Triumph, and it's obviously a game that's really easy to get into financially. You only pay 3 players. Nobody's really expecting much money. You get away with a few $100 salaries. Like it's a pretty low cost to entry, but I just don't see the longevity of it. Like I think it's kind of run its course at this point. I'd be surprised if it grows any larger. Like if this is as large as it's going to be, then I'm not really interested. But I suppose if they keep at it and revamp it, maybe Rocket League 2 or something, or they update it, give it like a new graphical overhaul. I don't know. I mean, I just don't think that the game's big enough yet, and it probably won't be. But I do like the game.
Do you mean like in like viewership? Do you mean like sales?
Yeah, viewership, sales, prize pools. It's just
I can agree
aside
with
from
the
the
prize pool.
yeah, and it's fine. I mean, that's how most esports are. It's like you have like your top, I don't know, 5 or 6 esports that we all know, but like most competitive games are just not really worthwhile for orgs to really invest money in long term. So that's kind of how I feel about Rocket League. But Rocket League, I think, first off, it's a really fun game, and I think it's a really good example, like what we were talking about, of like figuring out esports that are not just shooters. I think Rocket League carved a really cool path to show that like you can do something competitive that's not violent at all. Like car shooting through the sky, hitting soccer balls,
person blowing up their car, bro. You don't know who's piloting
that's true.
that thing.
That is violent, dude.
Bro, you're murdering someone's family member.
I think that's my biggest takeaway with Rocket League, though, is like they actually did something super unique and made it into like a reasonable esport and competition, and I do like that. I'm not against it. It's just it's not a valuable game to get into, kind of.
Got you. Yeah, Lotus says TikTok age group at the run that scene. Dude, everyone in that scene is so young. I don't think I've met like an endemic like Rocket League person who's like over the age of like 20.
They're young. I managed the Rocket League team a long time ago. Like I want to say, man, it had to have been 3.5 years ago. And our team, they were all like 15.
Jeez, man.
I mean, that's how that scene is. It's a lot of young people.
Yeah, I know Rocker's parent company, Version 1, they've signed the former Cloud9 roster, whose their players are a bit older. I think they're like 22, 25, something like that. But that's like as old as the scene gets. Like,
yeah, and those players have been playing the whole time. I mean, those guys have been playing for 5 years or whatever. So it's not like they were 25 and they picked it up. It's because they've been playing at a high level the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. So 5 years ago they started out. What were they? 16 years old, something like that. So, yeah.
I mean, Envy has a good Rocket League team too. So I don't know if you have an opinion about that, Gersh. I don't know if you have a Rocket League opinion.
I do, because I think Zach put it perfectly. Like, it was a concept that they were able to integrate really well into esports, whereas a game like Overwatch was made with esports in mind. I think when Lawbreakers tried to enter the market, I don't know if you remember Lawbreakers.
Yeah.
They tried to follow that exact path and just got to the point where it was like, no, Overwatch is doing this, but in a much better and a lot more marketable way. You hear that GM talk coming out. No, but I think Zach just put it perfectly. Like, Rocket League is a great game. I played it when it was like in beta stages way back when. So it's insane to see it like on the main stage now, right? I think Envy's got a great team. Shout out Turbo as well. Great
like
player right there.
World Championship or something like that.
Exactly.
Dude's insane.
Yeah, thank you, Turbo.
True.
So yeah.
He's a god of that scene for sure.
100%. Yeah. To your point, I guess like that's the most impressive thing about Rocket League anyway, is that they created a unique experience. Like, unlike something like Lawbreakers, where a lot of game developers try to make games like that are like, oh, from day one, we're going to make a perfectly competitive game that's just slightly different than some other game, and we're going to make it a huge esport. It doesn't work, man. I feel like
exactly.
You need to have, first off, you need people to actually play the game. It needs to be a long-standing, popular game. You know, COD has carved its own path. League of Legends and CSGO have carved their own paths. Rocket League has carved its own path as like a unique game that gives a unique experience that people want to play anyway. And then you throw esports onto it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just come out with like a carbon copy. Like, you couldn't make Rocket League and just make it cats instead of cars or something, and then try to make it an esport, because everybody would just nobody would
demo
migrate.
Another cat.
Cats like a ball of yarn, right?
You furball on them.
I think I inadvertently just made a more violent game. I didn't mean to
I
do that.
think you
so.
did.
My bad.
Dang, man.
Instead of demolition, you make him like cough up a hairball mid game. But yeah.
It's interesting to think.
All right. Yeah, Russell, do you have time? Or like we don't want to keep.
I
you
got
too long,
time.
do
I
we?
got look, man. Practice is over. I got nothing going on, man. If you guys got stuff for me, we can talk.
I'll ask one more
Dude.
question so that way we don't like drag this on too long. So you talked about how you really like the way Valorant's doing things. You're talking about how your view on Rocket League. We've been talking about like League of Legends, that sort of stuff. Who do you think there's a game right now where you could like say like that definitively is going to be number one? Or maybe there's like a new game that's like even more underground, like a Rogue Company or something like that you think is really underrated and could be a big esport?
Underrated and could be big.
Or like a game that's not number one right now that you think will be?
I think Valorant will be number one in the world.
Do you think eventually they'll like remove guns?
No, I think that game's cartoony enough. I think.
Okay.
I think.
Because I know you talked about that.
It's
earlier.
not. I don't think it's not the perfect game. When I'm talking about making a perfect game, esports long term, I just think this is something we'll see over the course of our life. I don't think it's going to happen soon.
Mm-hmm.
I also think there has to be something that comes out that eventually that's better than League of Legends, kind of in the same lane. So
yeah,
I don't know, but I think out of the titles that are big now, I think within 2 years, Valorant will probably be the biggest esport in the world, without a doubt. But I also think that Call of Duty, I actually feel very strongly about Call of Duty and CDL. I think that the CDL franchise with a North American game like Call of Duty, I think as long as Activision handles the tier 2 scene properly, I think CDL will also be at the top of esports in a big way.
Yeah.
But it's almost like two different lanes, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
As far as games that are sort of like underrated, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Most games are just carbon copies of other games.
Ooh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think Warzone stems into an officially licensed entity for esports, or does it just stay like on this side the way it is right now?
I suspect that Activision will milk it and turn it into an esport. I don't think that BRs are good esports in general, because anything that has randomly generated loot or randomly generated circles, it's
RNG
just
in general.
RNG is not really conductive to competitive, play. It just isn't. I mean, it's fairly competitive. Like, I mean, I like playing Warzone. I like playing Apex. I like playing PUBG. The reason Apex and PUBG fail ultimately is because at the professional level, it's just a clusterfuck. Like it's impossible to play. Like you could be the best team in the world and just lose because of RNG. Like that means it's not a competitive game, dude. So I think Warzone's the same way, and I think it's popular enough that like they'll turn it into something. They'll create some sort of Warzone ladder or league or something alongside the CDL, but I don't really see it being a thing long term.
Bro, the year is 2025. Every CDL team is required to have a COD roster, a Warzone roster, a COD mobile roster, and I don't know, like a challengers roster too.
Don't put it past Activision, dude. Those guys know how to make money. They will do. But I just don't think it'll be big long term, man.
Yeah.
Especially with the qualms people are having right now.
Yeah, especially also, by the way, like this is also another not so unpopular opinion. There's no way they can make Warzone professionally without anti-cheat. I can't believe that this COD doesn't have anti-cheat. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
actually, it does. It does. Standy. That's your anti-cheat right there, bro.
My anti-cheat.
You will watch
what's his name? Tommy?
Censor?
Crim6?
Yeah, we have Crim6. As long as we have Crim6, dude, we're gonna. No, I don't know. I don't understand like how they
Florida Mutineers.
Can't wait, dude. Like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if you were gonna do professional Warzone, to kind of stick to that, like, if you're gonna have to get in lobbies with random people and just run, games that way, you're gonna run into hackers every single lobby. That it's impossible to run a professional game like that. Like, you can't play. It's just not playable. Like, so I don't know. Until they do something about anti-cheat, or maybe they do Warzone where it's like Apex where you have
Private.
to get like 30
Yeah.
professional teams in every scrim and just only have professional teams in the lobby. Unless you could do that, like you can never do a BR professionally at all.
Well, even
Like-
then, like the play style changes drastically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, because like
yeah,
we
yeah.
saw
'cause-
it last year when they did the Warzone game, and it was, how long was it? It was like an hour and a half or something like that. Because
Yeah, dude.
teams would just camp and they would just play
Oh,
super
yeah.
scummy.
Yeah, that's another problem with I actually watched a lot of Apex because our Apex team was like top 5 in the world at one point, and
Mhm.
we're talking about Triumph, and now I think those guys, I can't remember. Actually, I think they got signed to North, and I think North just disbanded. So I don't know, but
Mhm.
the problem that I always found with like BR games is that in the end game, even with professional teams playing in a lobby together, it turns into an hour of camping, dude. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's impossible to watch. It's so boring.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it's been an amazing time. I absolutely love talking with you. Love talking COD. I love to hear some of your opinions. You know, the way you see things. It's super awesome to hear because you're the first GM we've had on, and I've only gotten to
Yeah.
talk to three GMs in my life. So, it's really awesome to see your point of view on things. I'm super happy we could have you on.
Yeah, I had a good time,
1000%,
dude.
Appreciate you coming on. Like, I think getting that challenger's insight to another team has been phenomenal, especially hearing your thoughts going forward and your valuable takes to the scene. Like, we prioritize it, like I mentioned earlier, and it's great to have that fitting right in with our podcast. So
For
thank you
sure.
once again for coming on. Oh, and thank you to Respawn and
Respawn
Artesian,
Artesian,
right?
yes.
Code Ladder.
Yes.
Always.
Listen, I am always down to talk COD. I feel very strongly about like coming together as a scene and trying to like have solutions and talk about problems. And I'm always down to come on and talk. And I appreciate you guys giving me time.
That's dope, man. That's exactly what we're here to do. So I absolutely love it. That's why I'm like so like I love it because you're preaching exactly what the whole vision for this thing is. So I'm super happy
Exactly.
about that.
It's beautiful, man. Thank you. Seriously.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to be it for episode 3 of the Ladder Podcast. Make sure to check us out on Twitter as well as CDC Updates YouTube. You can go ahead and follow them on Twitter as well at CDC Update. Without further ado, guys, we will see y'all later.
Yes, sir.